I know a lot of smart people. And when I talk to smart people, most of the time they're not entrepreneurs, like the ultra smart. And
Right.
I realize it's because they think through everything and they talk themselves out of everything. And so I have this thing, like I was never smart enough to like talk myself out of doing things. And then I was just too far in. I was like, all right, I guess I got to finish this.
Yeah, I think there has to be some level of irrationalness
Yeah.
to be an entrepreneur. You're listening to the Establishing Your Empire show, a podcast that inspires entrepreneurs, creatives, and future business owners to pursue their passions, grow their organizations, and build their empire. My name is Daran Herrman, and creatively, I'm best known for my photography. But business-wise, my claim to fame is growing a company from $15K per month in online sales to breaking the $1 million a month barrier. And I'm sitting down with interesting people to talk about their process, the lessons they've learned, and how they have established their empires. All right, I got Nathan Ruff with me on the Establishing Your Empire podcast. Nathan's the CEO of Rabbit, which is, they got these cool power station kiosks that are in bars, restaurants, and wherever people are hanging out and needing to charge their phones and their devices. Keeping the world safe and connected one care at a time. So pretty fun intro there and I think you do a lot of other stuff too, which we'll get into. But why don't we start off with like maybe your, who you are. What's your kind of, elevator pitch, right?
Yeah. So Nashville native, started my first business at the age of 12. My neighbor had given me a Ralph Lauren sweater when I was 11, and I never felt quality like that before. And I was like, I want more of this. Nobody hires a 12-year-old. And so I just went on to start a company watering plants. And then from there, start a company regrouping golf clubs. And my whole thing is jumping into things before I know what I'm doing. So like I order business cards, all this stuff to regroup golf clubs, and then realized that I wasn't strong enough to do it. And on the 15th page of Google, because Google's awesome, I found a air compressor attachment where you could shoot them in. It required no strength. And so, my way of solving things has just been like, all right, I'm just going to do it. Like I see the market, I see the need, and then I'm just going to get into it and find a way through.
Yeah, as opposed to just quitting.
Yeah.
It's like, there's got to be a different way to do this, right?
Yeah. I look at I know a lot of smart people. And when I talk to smart people, most of the time they're not entrepreneurs, like the ultra smart. And
Right.
I realize it's because they think through everything and they talk themselves out of everything. And so I have this thing, like I was never smart enough to like talk myself out of doing things. And then I was just too far in. I was like, all right, I guess I got to finish this.
Yeah, I think there has to be some level of irrationalness to be an entrepreneur. And I actually agree with that. I also think that you have to have this itch that you can't scratch sometimes. Like I need to figure this out. Right. And then also you get excited about it. You want to tell other people about it and try to make money. So 12 years old. So my first job was at 13, although it was working up, washing dishes. But so we both have started from way too young, but I think that's a lot of fun.
I think when you build a work ethic like that at a young age, it's just ingrained in you. Think about, you ask people who are if anybody struggling with addiction, it's like, hey, the second you realize you're addicted, you need to go get it fixed because every day is exponentially going to be harder. And so I look at the same way as like, if you wake up one day and be like, oh, I'm lazy, like if you don't know how to work, it's going to be exponentially harder when you're starting at 30 than when you were starting at 12.
Yeah, I completely agree. So all right. So golf clubs at 12, what was your next thing?
So then started like a t-shirt company and got my introduction to the World Wide Web. And Twitter, and was like, oh, cool, I can just tweet people all day long asking them to buy my shirt. And then I found chat roulette where you just randomly match with people. And I would just randomly match with people, talk with people and be like, hey, will you buy my shirt? And so then I had some pretty clever campaigns and had a shirt go viral and stuff like that. Got out of that in a good way. Domain's worth something. And then I was like, all right, I know how to build websites. That's cool. And then I was like, all right, everybody who's rich is in real estate. That's where I'll go because I just wanted to make money. And so I go to real estate school and I make my first big mistake, which of course led me to where I am today in a way that I'm like, all right, there's 50 people in here. 50 people are going to need websites, branding, cards, all this stuff. And the truth is that 50 go to real estate school, 40 finish the class, 20 take the test, 10 pass the test, 5 place their license, one goes to sell more than 2 homes a year. And of that one, he needs to see the value of looking different, having a brand, everything else. And so that was frustrating.
Yeah, as opposed to somebody who's already done all that and then handpicking the people with the money.
Yeah.
I always like to pitch to people with money because it's really hard to pitch to somebody who has not had the money yet.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to know that, hey, look, that a lot of people don't have that. They don't know how to market themselves, brand themselves. So I think a lot of those times there might not be, it might be a quote unquote failure, but you learned a lot there of like how uneducated people, some people are at this or how bad they are, right? To which then you can, when you do figure out the right people to pitch,
Yeah.
you know how to do it.
I knew nothing, like I literally knew nothing. My parents aren't connected, so I knew no one. So like I was charging, I think like $1,000 for a website, which, and so it's like, even then, like I remember like feeling nervous about telling somebody how much it was going to cost, which is like, you and I do some pretty big projects now in that space. So it's pretty funny.
And how do you, I interject there because I think pricing, a lot of people have trouble with it. And, I kind of have a saying I've said a couple times, whatever the first figure in your head is, that you want to say, just double it. That's always a good place to start because you're probably at least half of what you should be. And then another kind of fun saying is, if you have a spouse, go out, ask your spouse what you're going to charge and they'll tell you a real amount. But how have you dealt with figuring out a price? Any key takeaways that people could have there?
So Sean West, I don't know if you're familiar with him. Sean McCabe, he runs a brand called Sean West. He really released something called value-based pricing. And there was the idea of like pricing based on the value you provide. And I remember thinking like, wow, this is the way to do it. He built this whole system. He built tools. He built like software. And then I realized like nobody cares. Nobody wants to listen to your pitch about like how much value you're going to provide, And so our thing is this, like we produce exceptional work and that exceptional work has a price tag. And just like Louis Vuitton, like if you don't want to pay it, like there is a Gap right across the road in the mall and that's fine. But like if you want exceptional work that's going to make you millions of dollars and grow your brand to the next level, great. If you don't, like I can refer you to some people that do Squarespace websites and stuff like that. But like I'm focused on building tools and software that automate things, save you money so you can make more money and also improve processes and everything else. So we like, if you want to partner with us to make a lot more money and be successful and hold us accountable to that number, like if I charge you 30 grand for a project and you make 0 from it and you followed everything I said, I should be held accountable and that's fine. Like, so one thing, we offer 100% refund if people aren't happy within 60 days of going live. Like we do crazy stuff of like, cause I'm that confident in what we do. But our approach is like, this is our price. If you don't like it, like, I'm sorry that I'm sorry that I've done a bad job at determining how valuable this is. But talk to our clients. Here's the cell phone number of every CEO I work with. Just talk to them, see how the process is.
I love that. And that takes a lot of confidence to get there, which we'll kind of go through, I think, with your story. And I think also what you're saying there is we're going to give you a return on your investment. No, that's all we're here for, right? Yeah. Is some way, shape, or form. I think you say it in a very confident way, which I think a lot of people might not be able to do. But what they can do, so a lot of people can do a return, and that makes you feel more comfortable to sit there and say, "Look, I'm charging you 30, but I'm going to make you 120, right?"
Yeah. And so what I tell people is like, make sure they don't view you as an expense. If they view you as an expense, it's upper.
I love that. Yeah, it's great. So, all right. So then let's go back to the I think it's kind of fun just going through the story a little bit, especially since we started at age 12. So you slinging some t-shirts, you figured out some really interesting ways to market. You real estate, how'd that go?
Yeah. So I'm like, all right, I'll start an agency and I didn't know they were called agencies. I'll build websites. And that was a failure, but I got like a couple clients and I was just like kind of picked away. And I'm like 20 years old and I was helping a client. I like blew up their business on the Facebook ad side, and not because I did anything special. I just like built a pretty landing page and it just converted like crazy. And I was like, wow, and he like told me some books to read I never read before. And at this like moment, I realized I'm not an entrepreneur. I realized that like I have a job at like if I die, there's nothing here. There's no employees. I'm the only one building it. I'm actually not that great. So that whole David Goggins story of when he's like, he realizes that I don't know if you follow him at all, but like he like had to accept that he's an idiot with a 1.6 GPA, that he's a liar. Like he'd accept all these true facts about himself so he could become like the hardest man alive. And so, not comparing myself to David Goggins, let me just say that right now. But I had to accept the truth about myself that I was an idiot that didn't read, didn't know anything about business, wasn't very good at building websites, and was just kind of scrappy. So from there, I started to read 100 books a year, and started to build out a team, started to grow the company, grew it to 7 figures, and then decided, well, how you blow this up is you just get more clients. And I get more clients, you get more salespeople. And instead of hiring like one and then two and then three, I'll just hire 15 in the same month. So then that really kind of bankrupted the company and took me back to square one.
You're trying to gamble. You're throwing it out there, throwing the dice out there.
Like these highs and lows. And anyway, fast forward about 5 years into the business. We were stable, but I still just like, I was kind of over it. And so I just kind of been praying, like, Lord, just open a door for what's next for me. Like, I know how to build companies. I know how to like do some things well. And people just look at me as a web designer. And no matter how I try to position myself, it's like, oh, there's the guy that builds websites. And it's like, I don't even build them, But it's like, like you just met with me and you think that I'm like lying because I look so I have a baby face. So, like people just think that like, oh, he's just talking about a team because he wants to have a team one day. I mean, I had a client tell me that. Sure. And I was like, nah, that's not how that works. So anyway, I was on Instagram one day and my friend Bailey, I say friend, a guy I met one time that I followed on Instagram, posted, hey, there's round trip flights to China for $400. Who wants to go? And I was like, yeah, I'll go. Sure. And so I go to China. I have a little travel hack, which you can't do if you're married or have a girlfriend. I'm now in a serious relationship. Before I was in a serious relationship, get on Tinder, drop my location there, and I change my bio. Like not looking to hook up, not looking to meet anybody, looking to find somebody to show me around China. I'll pay you a flat daily rate. And so I got a girl that like lived in Chicago and then moved to China, and like she helped show us around. She put together a whole itinerary, everything. So she picked me up at the airport, took me to the hotel, walks to a little kiosk, scans a QR code, out pops a power brick with the cords built in, plugs into her phone, and then we walk on to dinner. And I was like, man, that's cool. And then I start to see them everywhere. And so immediately I'm like, the issue of people's phones dying. Bars, restaurants, hotels, travel, games, everywhere. Like everywhere I go, I see this issue. Me driving, I see this issue. Like,
right.
And so I was like, this is the solution. Because what's out there is charging stations, which aren't everywhere and require you to stand there, charging lockers, which require you to lock your phone up and not have access to it. The idea that you could rent and return anywhere, that it was very cheap and affordable, just stuck with me. And I was like, how does this not exist in the US? So I get back and I'm at a dinner with about 12 people. And I was like, all right, it's about 8:30. How many people here have under 20%? About 10 people raise their hand. All right. How many people would pay money for a fully charged phone? About 8 people raise their hand. All right, what would you pay? It's like 5, 10, the one guy that doesn't pay his own bills, 15, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's just like, and I'm like, all right, what if it was like this little kiosk I could like sit on a bar countertop and like it just stored power bricks that were in there and you just walk up to it, scan it like you would a bird scooter and pop out. Everybody's like, yeah, how does that not exist? And I was like, it's about to. So in my typical way, I'm like, all right, I'm just going to self-fund it, launch it, build it, whatever. And then I get busy doing agency work and other stuff. That never happens. And I bought this little tool that takes your Google Analytics, your revenue, and your email subscribers and puts it in a little dashboard. And it does it for all your clients. So you just have like a constant feed of what everybody's doing every month, and you compare it to last month, all this stuff. And so I thought I could just add some features to it and sell it to agencies. So I'm meeting with a guy who's like, hey, if you're ever looking to raise money, like, let me know. Like, I'd love to invest in you. So I meet with him and I'm like, telling him about this. And he has no interest at all, like, doesn't care at all. I'm like, all right, I got to think of something else to talk about because it's not going good. I'm like, I'm also working on another thing called Rabbit. And I was like, and I show him these like these awful photos I have of the unit. And he was like, yeah, that's amazing. Like, I would fund that today. Which he ended up not. But so that was a Wednesday at around, I guess, lunchtime, and around 2:30 that afternoon, I decided to leave my company and start Rabbit. And then I set up investor calls, and within a week had $1 million in committed funding. at a 3 mil valuation. And I only took 220. And then July 1st, 2019, started as CEO. And then we just hit it hard.
So I love it. So first question is about, because it was one kind of last piece, is about the funding. How many people did you have to talk to, call, do meetings? Like, how well did that go? Did you have a pretty decent close ratio, or was it pretty rough?
I've never raised money for anything. And this is why when people raise money for things that are ideas that like aren't easy to understand, I'm like, God bless you. Like, because like it's really easy to understand. It's like everyone, you've experienced it, your phone's died. So if we're the solution for it and it doesn't exist anywhere in the US, like we're the first company to do it. And we're, my background is building software and websites and like branding, that it's like, it's a pretty good bet, like it's at least easier for an investor. So I knew nobody. So I knew successful CEOs that were my clients, and I just kind of set up a list. So that Thursday I had a call, the guy committed 100. And then that Friday I had a call, with 2 different people. They each committed 100. And then the following week I was in Amsterdam doing consulting. And so my day would finish up there, and then I would hop on the phone. And out of, I think 12 people I called, I think 10 committed like 100K.
And I think the big thing there, the takeaway, is that over all these years, you were building a network.
Yeah.
And then that was your time to kind of monetize that network, or kind of press on them, because they obviously had some successful encounters with you in the past. So, so it's been about a year, right? Since you've and is that from when you got the funding, or?
Yeah. So, I started the company July 1st. I closed on funding. I started mid-June. I started CEO July 1st. And I think all our checks came in like the first week of July.
And I'm guessing because you already had this engine, a marketing engine, website was probably already in the works. I'd
already designed the app. And I actually had just designed a landing page I was like, we don't need emails. We don't need anything other than a link for people to download the app. And I got something completely wrong in the best way possible. So I thought, okay, I've worked with app companies, and the hardest thing in the world is getting people to download it. Like getting them to know what it is. This is going to be our hardest part. And so like the day we went live, which was end of October, we instantly, no marketing, no advertising, people would walk up to this random black box, read a paper sign that's on it, download an app, type in all their info, add their credit card, load their account with money, and use it. And I was like, okay, we've hit something really good here.
Yeah. And you're lucky to post scooters, like you said before. I think, it's so much easier every day, every year for people to put their credit card in an app. I remember in e-commerce early days, like, thank God for PayPal, because you couldn't get somebody to touch their money to pay online. So I read some place that you basically were live in like 115 days or something like that. Can you walk us through that sprint process of how you kind of did that, right?
Yeah.
And any ups and downs along the way?
Yeah, our developer announcing that he was going to take a 2-week vacation 3 weeks before our launch party, and they were supposed to go live. That was a down. I'll just start there, and it should start from the start. I made it very clear to everyone that like everything rides on this, and that I do what I say I'm going to do. Like that is my whole thing. I do what I say I'm going to do. So if you don't do what you say you're going to do, if you don't accomplish what you say you're going to accomplish, you're out. And like I'm not like long-term leadership, I would never do that. But like in this short sprint, it's like you're in, and if I see any drop in performance, you're out and you're replaced. And so, like, again, that's not great leadership advice, especially when you're building a company. But for what I was trying to do, that was like what was required to let people know this is very serious what I'm trying to do. Because I've watched so many startups over and over and over again miss their deadlines, not by a week, not by 2 weeks, but by years. And a lot of it's they never have enough funding the day they start. There's different aspects. They hire an agency to do it. Like the biggest thing if you want something completed on time is you don't hire an agency. I own an agency, but if your company is a tech company, you have to build your tech in-house. Uber is not hiring me or you to build their tech. Right. They're doing it in-house. And so I'm always telling people, like, look, we'll help design it. We'll help like there's all these aspects we can help with, but like the actual building of your app needs to happen in-house from day one. And so that's I had a CTO from day one. We had a software team from day one, and like we just hit that hard.
And anything that happened, like, okay, so Well, I guess what was your goal? The 115? Like
My goal was 90 days.
Gotcha. So, but it's a miss, but it's less than a month miss. Right?
Well, it actually worked out. Our units didn't arrive at 90 days. So we technically hit it because we had an app, but like our units didn't arrive from China and clear customs in time. So that was a part I could not control.
Yeah. So, and the value I'm trying to get at here too is like, okay, got funding because if you had the network, you did all that. You had this idea, which is great because you learn about it in China. You start hiring a team sounded like that worked out great, and that you were going to basically make sure everybody gets their job done really quickly. But actually executing is a whole another ball game. Do you think it's because was it more simple of a task? How did that actually happen to where somebody could replicate it?
Now I can look back, and I've had 3 months of nothing happening due to COVID, but I've had a lot of time to think about things. I break things down, into every sector of the business: sales, development, design, all of this. And I say, here's our key people for here, and here's our next 10 hires for here. So I'm always thinking ahead, and I'm always thinking what we need and what our current people are doing. And that way I can just work like when I'm reviewing things, because I really like tried to be just a CEO in this business where it's like I'm not doing sales, I'm not doing I do like our big deals and stuff, but I'm very 10,000 foot view. And so I'd be like, okay, dev is handled, sell side, who's the biggest business development people I know? I need to make deals with them. And so I would just kind of like hammer at stuff like that every day I'm looking at this spreadsheet of where we're at, and I'm saying, okay, where's like, hey, I was supposed to get an app release for for Android yesterday, and it's 6 a.m. and I don't have it. And the guy'd be like, oh, I just forgot to drop it in Slack. Here it is. And it's like, I was always really on top of things, and I wasn't sleeping at all. So like, there is a price to a sprint like that, because at the same time I'm flying to China, I'm meeting with manufacturers, I'm designing our own unit there. I'm making sure, it's like, so we're gonna have all these bosses that run on our own network, like through a SIM card, that then talk to our servers, that then talk to an app. And so like this train of things, people are like, there's no way you can get this done in under a year. I was like, no, we're gonna get it done.
And I think that's what's great about a sprint, even if, and I also think that like these sprints don't have to be a whole huge startup. It could be like, you want to create your own little small business, like take off work for 2 days, not the weekend or something, after, do a lot of thinking of it beforehand. And then you're like, okay, I'm going to commit like 12 hours a day, 14 hours a day for these 2 days. You'll get more done in those 2 days than you will in 6 months, right? When you actually say, hey, this is our time. We have no extra time here. This is it. And we're going to go as fast as possible.
Just trying to be active. Something I'll do is I'll write down, like once a year, I'll write down, what are all the ways I can make money? And like, I'll write stuff. I could drive for Uber. Like that would be stupid. I would lose money what I could make doing other things, but it's like all the ways I can make money. And then from there I feel like, okay, what are ways I currently don't make money that I could? Now, like I'm always just thinking about things. And I do that with our clients too. I have a list of our clients, and I'm always thinking like, how could I provide more value to them? I wonder what's this? And that way, when I have a cool idea where I develop something, I'm like, all right, here's my first 20 customers for it. And so I'm always thinking about like biz dev.
I like it. And then, so, all right, walk me through your actual physical location. So not get COVID yet, but like, all right, how does this actually appear in somebody's location?
Yeah. So originally it's like they get the unit for free, 8 by 12 inches. The average bartender's asked 5 to 10 times a night during a weekday and 10 to 15 on a weekend for a charger. So it's free to them. They get 20% of the revenue it produces. It doesn't take up a lot of space, and it solves the single-handedest biggest problem they face. Messed up that sentence, but whatever. It solves a huge problem they have. And so I was like, this is going to be so easy. And the reason I was so pumped about Rabbit is because the reason I hated or was stressed out about running an agency, like I love doing the work, but it was the biz dev side. It was just like I grind all the time to sign clients. Like my life is just grinding to sign clients. And even when we're successful, it's still that grind of like deal flow. Because we didn't have a lot of recurring revenue, and I wasn't growing that at the time. And I'm watching my friends that have like marketing agencies that are all reoccurring based, and they're just like crushing it because they built the same amount of clients I did, but then those same clients paid them every single month. And so I just remember thinking, all right, I want to be able to have a product that's free, either free to the user or free, and we're paid another way. And I like people say, oh, it's free and then subsidized by advertisers. I hate that model because then I got to go find advertisers. And so like this model, it's like super low cost to the consumer. It's like it just hit everything I wanted. I was like, this is going to be so easy. Who's going to say no? Well, most bars are going to say no. Like that's, the truth is most bars are going to say no.
And also a lot of bar owners only own one bar, right? Yeah. So that's kind of a tough part too.
So this is how it works. The average bar sees like 7 people a day that are trying to sell them something.
Wow. I remember, I remember being in retail. I was in jewelry, like retail shops for about 6 years. And man, it was all the time. People just walking into the retail shop.
Credit card processing, food.
Yeah, or just even wholesalers trying to sell you something, got some new, different, whatever. People wanting, money for their organization. So I get that. That makes sense. Yeah, they don't want to talk to you.
All right. So we built out a sales team. We hire a great biz dev guy, Chris. We do all this stuff, and it's like, all right, walk in, ask for the manager. Get to the manager. Hey, I want to show you what we've built. First one in the U.S. It's awesome. Which nobody wants to try something new, so that's not a good approach. And so we have 10 scripts. We're just trying to just learn stuff, right? We do the demo, and they see it pop out. Until they see it pop out, they don't care at all. But they see it pop out, and they're like, okay, I get it. This is awesome. But I don't make the decision. Owner makes the decision. And then you get like an email a week later, like, oh, owner doesn't want it. And then it's like, the sales guy's like, yeah, the owner didn't want it. I'm like, well, did you follow up with the owner? Did you get a call with him? And so it's like always building these that's the thing about startups. Like not only are we trying to go everywhere, but then we got to build these processes and systems to get newbies in sales to, because it's like all these different ways. There's credit card processing. There's ways to partner with other people. Like there's all these ways, but when you look at how short a time frame we had, like those weren't developed yet. Mm-hmm. It's like now we have a deal with a payment processing company that has like 200,000 merchants that we're working on how we can go to like all the merchants we want to, and they can do a lot of that selling for us. Because it's always, a warm lead is like 10 times better than a cold one.
Yeah, but I do think that going to those initial bar owners, I think you learned a lot there, right? Of how to say, how to position it, what they care about.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a grind. The days we spent a lot of money. We got units live in 3 cities. And we hammered at it, but like it was not easy at all. And the truth is that a unit success is only dependent on good location or even an okay location, and everyone on staff knowing what it is and how it works. So sometimes we get a good location and just random people would walk in, they would discover it and be fine. But if I had a bad location or okay location, but nobody on staff knew what it was, like the amount of restaurants I would go into a week after we went live and be like, hey, my phone's dying. Like, do you have anything? And like, nope, sorry. Or be like, oh yeah, I have a charger here. Do you just want me to take it? And this would happen over and over again. It's the worst feeling, especially when you're like trying to show off to your friends. Like, check this out.
Yeah, you're trying
to. You have a charger?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, check this out. No. Oh man. Oh. So you have to constantly retrain them then. Or something.
Well, it's just like the GMs have to care, but they don't. Like they have a bunch of other things, and it's like, and I'm really extreme with stuff. So I'm like, hey, a 20-year-old girl phone's gonna die, and she's gonna be in a very bad position if she doesn't have a charge phone because nobody on staff knew about it, and the solution was here. Like we can keep people safe. Like when I talk about the safety aspect of Rabbit, the question, like we're working with universities again before COVID. We'll see how this goes after, but is your student safer with a dead phone or a charged phone? Please tell me.
Right. Yeah. Completely. It's a lifeline,
And so like if we can get people to have conversations, everything's done. Like most things in the world, the most issues in the world going on right now is that nobody's having conversations with each other. And everybody looks at like, if I have a different belief than you, that like, I must hate you or you have to hate me or like, it's like, we can have different beliefs and respect and love each other. And so the same thing with these bar owners, like they don't want to have conversations with anybody. They just want to keep selling beer, doing their thing. And so it's convincing people have a conversation with me.
Yeah. So talk to me about COVID, right? All right. So you guys got 3 different cities. You're starting to really pick up steam, even with these problems, but still like chugging along. I'm sure way better than it was. And January is way better than April, right? So how has it affected your business, and how do you approach a business? And then after the effects of it is, what do you see coming out of COVID, right?
Yeah. So everything hit zero. Like literally in April, I think we had one new user and zero in revenue. Like hit zero. And that's, we were having like 1,000 new users a month kind of thing. So for perspective.
Right.
And for me, everybody loves to invest during the seed round when it's just an idea and there's, most ideas fail. Most people never get it live. It doesn't work. They run out of money, all these things. For some reason, we had like endless amount of people that wanted to invest. Now that we're live with amazing numbers, that's when it was really challenging to raise. Now I was raising at a high valuation because I thought the market was there. But essentially I had spent, for the last 4 months fundraising, and I was set to close my round, a 7-figure round at a really good valuation. I was set to close that 3 days after the mayor called for all bars to be shut down in Nashville, and Miami's mayor followed suit. And Atlanta did about a week later. And so he like calls for this on a Friday. They all have to be closed by Sunday. And I'm like, all right, we'll see how this goes.
It's a tough one. Yeah, it's a tough one.
And then nothing Monday. And I'm like, all right, good. And then we're supposed to meet Wednesday. And I'm like, all right, we just got to get to Wednesday. And then Tuesday morning, I get this email, like, we're pausing all investments until we get a pulse on what's happening. And the problem is that I'm like super rational. And so where some people are like, no, you need to do this. And I'm like, hey, I would do the same thing with my money. And so, that next round of funding didn't close. So therefore we had to like lay off everyone. Now, thankfully everyone is like, it's very good at what they do. And like was instantly into things, even with COVID, and is doing great. And things were kind of positioned because I was like, guys, I don't know if we're going to close this round of funding, to be honest. Like things are just a problem.
I also think that that's kind of understood when you're doing a startup, especially a brand new startup. Like we're talking ground floor startup. So I think that there's a inherent risk no matter which startup you're going with.
Yeah. And so I made a lot of bad calls because I thought with Trump as president, he doesn't seem like the type of person to me that's going to kill our whole economy over a virus that doesn't kill young people. Maybe if it was like the 1918 virus that would, like 30-year-olds, 20-year-olds would just get it and die. Like, obviously we need to shut everything down, but I'm like, he's probably not going to do this over a virus that's not killing young people. And not to say it's not as serious or doesn't matter. I don't want words put in my mouth. But
when you're a business owner, you have to make assumptions of what you think that policies will happen, right?
And so I was like, we're in this 2-week quarantine. We're going to come out. Obviously, we're not going to kill, most small businesses. And that was wrong. We ended this quarantine. We had to stay there. Then this very limp back opening, and then we finally got back to opening, and then people were going back to other stages, and we could see 30% of all our merchants shut down, and that is very hard for me because I'm somebody who's grinded my whole life to get just somewhere a little bit, and so I deeply feel with them in the same way that if somebody's had somebody in their family die of cancer, and they know somebody died of cancer, they feel that. So in the same way, I know what that feeling's like. So that's really tough for me. So yeah, we just hit zero and things stayed bad, and then things started to reopen and revenue immediately started to climb back up again. Users started to climb back up again. So I was like, all right, concept, everything's still there. But I was like, all right, we're not going to raise another round of funding again until we're like fully back.
Yeah. Plus, to tell you the numbers are there. So, and I know nobody could call what COVID's doing because it's, open, close, and all this, but maybe not immediate after COVID, but what do you see maybe the next year or so? What was kind of your outlook there for your company?
Yeah. So even right now, our goal is we're working hard with like emergency rooms, hospitals, like places that will not shut down ever to go live there. So my goal is to get one of these big, 200 hospitals or, a big chain essentially, and get a bunch of units out there, all our units left in inventory, get all those out there. And then from there, raise our next round of funding and be right back on our path, trajectory and growing and everything. So I still think, a year from now, we'll have hopefully a few thousand units out there. If not, all it is just like delaying things. So it's all about our deal flow. It's like if we can close one big deal, we could place 3,000 units with one big deal. And some of these deals we've been working on for a year. So I remember like the healthcare one, like people are like, oh, you're pivoting. Good move. Got to pivot in a startup. And I'm like, look, from day one, our goal has to be everywhere. Like we don't like, I have no interest in being just bars, just hotels. Like I want to be everywhere. I'm trying to be the Uber of this. I'm not trying to be Lyft. One investor, guy is an awesome guy. He was like, there's nothing wrong with being Lyft. They're $1 billion company. They're this. And I'm like, I get it. His company is about 250 million and he's like number 12 at what he does. And he's like, see, like, look how so, and I'm like, that doesn't get me excited. Especially when I can feel that we could be number one and we are number one currently. I'm like, that's all I want. So I told everyone that everybody's like, oh, you're pivoting. We're not pivoting. We're doing the same thing we're trying to do a year ago. It's just things are processing differently.
Yeah, it's just expedited in those industries.
Yeah.
Because your phone doesn't decide to die at certain places or things. Yeah. And in fact, the waiting room, you probably are using your phone a lot. So it's...
Yeah, and as far as like sanitation stuff, we can make it where when they return one, that it doesn't rent that same one for 72 hours. We have some studies are showing COVID doesn't live on services for longer than 15 minutes. Some say up to 72 hours. I mean, like so there's all the data's crazy. And so we tell the provider, hey, it's your call. Because, if somebody had COVID and touched ours and somebody need to rent it, and, the kiosk is pretty hot. And so I would like to think that heat combined with it, like everything else, that they had to rent it, touch all over, and then they had to touch their mouth or their nose. And I'm like, and I'm thinking as much as people are doing while they're out, I'm like, it's probably like, I don't think they're going to be getting it from us. I think they'll be getting it from airborne, just talking to somebody, not wearing a mask or something.
Yeah, you would assume. And plus, the fact that you could build that ability in for the 72 hours, just what's great about this kind of more of a smart device as opposed to a dumb device is you could switch that. As far as, the app and like and everything, and I think you kind of already walked through it, but like, is that something where you can just literally download it to all the different devices and so you could completely change how your system works and all that? And also any things about like building an app that you've ran across that might be valuable to somebody wanting to build an app?
Yeah. So I see this all the time running an agency, which is that people get designs for their app and they hire a company to build their app. And then they have no way to manage their app because they never had designs for a dashboard or for a backend. And a lot of people outsource to India, which is your decision. That's not something I do. But when you do that, India will do most people in India will do exactly what you send them. Where if you outsource to a US agency, most of the time they'll say, well, we can build all this, but like, how are you going to delete users? How are you going to edit users? How are you going to ban users? How are you going to change locations? Like, what's the whole backend piece of this? And so my biggest advice to people is don't take shortcuts, and then think through everything. Like you're thinking just about the app. You're not thinking about what ties into your app. Like what kind of marketing campaign do you have once you get their email that goes, like these things really matter, like having a whole plan and setup. And the other thing I see a lot of people are trying to create an app that already exists. And most apps are not successful. I would say you can probably 99.5%, 0.4%, something like that. So with that being said, people love to pretend like their idea is original or that it doesn't exist. Find the app that's most similar to yours. That's yours might have one different feature. And if they're not, like they might exist and they might have built everything, but they don't want it anymore. It's not successful. They need your one feature for it to work, and just offer to buy it from them, offer to partner with them. It is much easier to buy a company than it is to build a company. And so when you look at Warren Buffett, like Warren Buffett doesn't build companies. He buys good companies and holds them for a long time.
It might even be less expensive when you look at it. It just looks like a bigger figure. But, the thing about creating an app and doing a lot of things similar to that is it's not like a set dollar amount. You might put a budget and even talk to an outsourced company. That doesn't mean just because they say it's going to be $300,000 or whatever, it doesn't mean that it's going to be that much. You can keep going.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I never really thought about, doing some resource of other apps out there and just throwing an offer.
Yeah.
You never know.
And thinking about I see a lot of people that are trying to build companies on features. And you can build a nice side hustle income. You can, you can quit your day job on building a feature company, but a real company needs to be more than this one feature that you have. So these people are like, whoa, we do this. And it's like, okay, well, there's 10 other companies that do this. Well, we have this one feature. Okay, so you have one feature that differentiates you from everyone. And so it's like, if we're going to build a feature app, like, let's just find the 10 other companies that do what you do and just add your feature to it, because they already have an audience and everything else. And there's also a good tip, which is like, because there's so many app companies and a lot failed or a lot not updated, finding ones that are in your niche and just offering to buy all of them, because they have all they have all these customers that you can then send emails to, like, hey, we just purchased so and so that shut down, hasn't updated their app in 2 years. Would you be interested? Like, we have something that's like them but better. Here's why. So there's all these kind of growth hacks. We don't have to do with Rabbit because it's a different kind of app, but it's just like growth hacks I'm just aware of that I've worked with other companies on.
I think they're very interesting. Also, I have a question about, like, so you've owned an ad agency, and I think a lot of people that would listen to this podcast are in the marketing field, so, have their own agency, web design companies. What has that taught you that has translated to being owning your own new startup, right? Any things that has like really helped? I mean, I think obviously being able to just understand marketing for sure, but like, I think there's a lot to be learned with owning a design company, web design, and working with a lot of clients. Any key features that you can think of with that?
Yeah. I think these are just key principles that I have for myself. I don't think they apply to an agency. We don't take shortcuts. We do everything in the USA. I mean, like, we have a polling group we've used from some really crazy development stuff, but like, for the most part, like, we want to help our people around us. We want to actually care about our community. So we're not going to post on Instagram, but like, our profits, we want to be building wells. We want to be giving back. We want to, like, I don't do anything for people to think I'm cool. So, like just these core values of like how we get involved and do stuff. But the biggest thing is that, like, for me, running an agency was just learning business development. That's all it was. And so my biggest takeaway, and you might disagree, other people might disagree, but like, it doesn't matter how good you are. It doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't really matter like how well you take care of your clients, like all stuff that I do. But, for the most part, it only matters who you know. Like, there's a reason there's people that have terrible websites that are slow and don't rank well and everything bad because they're friends with the guy. And so the only thing that's really like, how did I raise money for Rabbit? How to do everything? I had clients. And so my goal, like, the reason I drove to Austin, Texas to do this podcast, so I was like, well, it's going to be better than if I do it over Zoom, and I need to know more people, and knowing more people is everything. So my thing is, like, my biggest takeaway from running an agency, because an agency for me was constant biz dev. It might be different for different people, but we don't have a lot of recurring options. Now we do, but we're hardcore in the design development space. So not Facebook ads and other stuff that people get this kind of recurring bite from. Website management's our only really reoccurring piece. So my thing is, like, business development's everything, and business development is not about selling people all day. It's just about knowing a bunch of people.
So, I mean, I completely agree. And we were talking about this right before we got started. Was one of the big reasons why I started this podcast was to, I wanted to meet a bunch of interesting people doing interesting things and get involved. And I felt like, my own networking, which I'm a pretty good networker too. I just felt like I was lacking. The business was doing well enough and this and that. And you kind of quit. Very easy to just do heads down and do the work that you need to do. And stop actually reaching out to people.
It's just everything. All my best experiences, all my best, like, I was gonna say hookups. I don't mean in that term in a bad way. I mean, like, somebody giving me a great deal on something. I was like, all my best. Oh, that's not gonna sound good. All my best, people giving me great deals has been like relationship. And so, like, I've lived in Nashville my whole life. I'm moving to Dallas at the end of the year. And the simple reason is that, like, all right, fundraising is the best way to get to network. Truly, just start anything and then announce you're raising money, and you get to meet with successful people all over the city that invest in stuff. And like, it's a great way to network.
I love it. So I have a kind of a more broad question. Is like, what does success look like for you?
So success looks like ensuring everyone in the world has access to fresh water. Like, that's what success looks like to me. So to do that, like, I plan to make $1 billion plus. Which means provide so much value. I make $1 billion. You don't make $1 billion from scamming people. You might make 10 million, but like, you make $1 billion from inventing something or doing something good for the world, such as building Microsoft, or building Apple. I was at Tire Discounters the other day, and I was like, man, these places are everywhere, and they have like the best deals on like tires, and they're good tires, and like their customer service is really good. And I like looked up the founder, a billionaire. It's like
Yeah, I was just
people
there
well.
yesterday. Unfortunately, you don't ever want to be there, but they're building a new HEB really close to our house, big old grocery store, and it's like a third flat tire in like 6 months. I'm like, because of all the construction.
Do you have the policy with them though that they replace? Like, did you get the insurance?
Not typically. So, and I don't ever keep that stuff. So it doesn't matter. It was just more annoying. You don't want to have to be there. But it's a side story. I don't get too sidetracked. But I literally looked up on my phone. I wanted to buy their stock. They're slammed. They're slammed.
Private company started by a billionaire.
Yeah. Like
And
44 billion in sales or something a year.
Yeah. Same thing. So, I have 3 life goals: ensure everyone in the world has access to fresh water, provide so much value in the world to become a billionaire, run for president in 2052 and win. And,
there we go.
I've had people look at this like, oh, you just want power. And it's funny. It's like, it seems to be the people that always say I want power are actually the people that want power the most. Like, I never think about a power dynamic. Like, it's just not ever like power is just like I get it. Like, I've read 48 Laws to Power. Like, I know how to see it, but like, it's not something like I'm all about value. Like, it's just like, I just want to know a bunch of people and serve people well and build great things. Like, Rabbit making $1 billion will be awesome, but like more fulfilling is like the team I get to work with, all our merchants across the world, all our franchisees, all our advertising partners, like that, like community, that family is what's awesome. So ultimately that's like success is ensuring that 25,000 people don't die a day because of dirty water. So we look at COVID and we're like, 100 people are dying a day, when the average age is 81. And we're like, all right, we got 7-year-olds and, 14-year-olds and 21-year-olds just dying a day because they drink from a swamp every day. And how do you solve that? It's like nothing special other than you just dig a hole deep enough in the ground until you hit water.
Well, to solve it, you have to have, it's money, right?
Yeah.
You need money. You need some fuel, right? And I think a lot of people have some negative connotations with money, right? The root of all evil,
Which
is money.
True.
It can be, but I think the flip side of it, depending on your relationship with money, is money. Without money, you have very little fuel, which means you can't do a whole lot. So if you do want to make impact, money is a part of that impact most of the time.
And it's okay to want a lot of money. It's okay to like I would say like I want a lot of money because I'm trying to build a bunch of wells. And guess what? I like cars, and like there's these things of like we sometimes have like we just want everybody to lose, and it's like I just want everybody to win. Like I have a client who does a few million a year, very successful. He's done that for the last couple of years. I think his personal income 7 figures. And he pays $250 a month for website management. That's hosting, support, everything for this tool we built for him. And he texted me yesterday after being a customer for 2 months and is like, hey, accounting's got a problem with the monthly payment. And I was like, oh, are they getting too many emails? Because they email like before it's described, after they describe, a PDF receipt, all this stuff. And he's like, no, the price. And I was like, okay, well, accounting doesn't have any issues. You have an issue. And I was like, I provide a bunch of value just like you do. Because he's got a membership base that pays him $300 a month. He's got a lot of members. And I was like, what happens if your member doesn't want to pay your monthly fee anymore? Do you care at all? No. Like, I was like, we're friends. So like, I care. I was like, but more thing is just, it hurts that you like want me to lose. Like this 250 is helpful. It's helpful to my staff. It's helpful to me. It's helpful to the organizations I support. And like, I just think that like you can afford it and you're just trying to be cheap, or just like maybe you look at me as somebody you can take advantage of or whatever. And I don't appreciate that. And so like, I try to like state a line of like, it's okay that I make this amount of money. And if you have a problem with that, like take your money, vote with your dollar kind of thing. But like having conversations around money, like I often tell people our profit margins.
Well, I think that's something I think we're going to start seeing this, one, transparency, but also that I think that the people's relationship with money is very interesting. And I think the internet can really get people to learn a little bit more of the positive sides of things. Because I think a lot of us think, oh, they have money. If you don't have it, and I grew up pretty poor, so like, you look at it in a certain way. And then after you get around a lot of people, like, well, no, maybe it's not that bad. And maybe it's actually your relationship with money. If it is a bad relationship, then maybe that's the reason why you don't have a lot of it, right? You need to figure out how to use it for you to your advantage as opposed to negative. Also, not to get on too much tirade out here, but on the flip side of that is with owning an agency as well, is I do like to get money out of the way right away, very first thing we talk about. Almost, obviously, I want to sell their services to get them interested, but I think that when you're working with a client, it's really great to like be on a firm understanding of the costs and the figures, and this is what we're doing, and then you can just get it out of the way and not have to talk about it again. And then some people will just want to discount you because they just love to negotiate. And
it's like
they just want to do it.
I don't mind people that negotiate, but if we agree to terms, don't try to change them after we agree to terms.
Yeah.
So if you want to sit there and negotiate with me for hours, it's my favorite thing. Please. But if we agree to something, I'm not going to change my word. You're not going to change yours, right? Like, let's just have this mutual understanding.
I love it. So let's go to a little bit more personal route with a couple questions. Like, okay, you started your own company at 12. Any advice you'd give yourself, your 14-year-old self? Of like, if you could go back in time and give yourself some advice.
So I grew up in a not wealthy family, and I'm not saying my parents taught me this, but I had learned that value is price. The value is nothing but price. So I'd spent the first 18 years of my life of being like, how can I be the cheapest? How can I be the cheapest? And I realized value is many more things than price. Like, the reason I bought this Tiffany & Co. tie clip right here, because I know it has a lifetime warranty. There's like anytime like I need it polished, anytime like if it breaks or whatever, I'll just take it to them and they'll replace it for free. Same with this tie. If there's anything ever wrong with it, I just take it back to Nordstrom's and they replace it with the same one.
And more importantly, with the tie, the tie clip is it has a resale value.
Yeah,
because of the company brand.
Exactly. And so it's this thing of like, this Tiffany & Co. clip costs maybe $200, and guess what? If I sell on eBay today, I'll probably get $160.
Mm-hmm.
Where if I go buy one from Dillard's for $40, it's going to sit on eBay for months and nobody's going to buy it.
Right.
And then Goodwill might eventually get it. So I might buy it for $5. And so there is that thing of like understanding value. Like, I think like RV, like somebody's like, dude, I could live in an RV and save all this money. It's like, you could, but see, the difference between an RV and a home is that a home appreciates in value and an RV depreciates in value. And so same thing with like buying land and stuff. It's like, some of these things that like people can look at as like blowing money or some things. Well, if it sells for the same amount, like I know people that buy $100,000 watches, and I personally don't have $100,000 to put towards a watch, but I would say three people I know have done that. 2 upgrade every year and typically sell it for more than what they paid. That they know the exact lot they're buying. They got a good they paid more than what retail was, but it just went up every year.
Yeah, I mean, I used to be in jewelry, so like. 2003, you're gonna wear it and you're gonna enjoy it, and then you could, as long as you understand how to buy and how to sell it, though, that's a whole different deal. And a lot of those people understand if they buy it right in the right area and they're placing a little bit bet, and if they understand how to sell it without losing too much commissions on the sell, because that's also a big piece of that. But then your delta is only what you're gonna buy it and sell it from. So even if you have that $100,000 watch, but you sell it for 96, you really only had a $4,000 difference, right, out of pocket.
And then is that $4,000 worth me wearing it for 2 years or whatever?
Yeah, which is if you would like that watch for the posturing aspects, or even just for the fact that you love that watch.
Yeah, and how many clients did it help you sign?
Yeah. Well, I'm into that stuff a little bit. So like that'd be a lot of fun to have. But what about like, okay, so obviously understanding money differently of value as opposed to trying to get just whatever the cheapest deal is. Any regrets along the way here?
Everything. Starting an agency. No. My regrets is that I didn't know that relationships was going to be the only thing that took me anywhere. Like I didn't know that I thought people go to Harvard because they want like a really good education. I didn't know that people go to Harvard so that it says Harvard on their resume, and so they can meet other people that went to Harvard, but also that helps them, like it's not about the Harvard on the resume as much as about just meeting other people that went to Harvard and that network. And so I wish I would have known. I mean, I didn't learn this till probably within 2-3 years. That's like, oh, the only thing that matters is how many people I know, and just constantly trying to expand that network in a non-MLM way.
Because the network actually has to work for you. Just because they're a friend or they follow you on Instagram doesn't mean anything unless you can actually interact with that person.
Yeah, I heard a great analogy by a mentor. He said, Condoleezza Rice. She's been like, she was under administration. She's the only woman member of Augusta National. Like, she's been all, she knows world leaders everywhere. She's liked on both sides of the party. Like she's, like considered a incredibly smart, well-liked person, but she has no way to monetize those relationships.
Right.
And I was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy.
And that is something that I always think about is, and I think the people, when you do go to that well of monetization, make sure it's the well that you should go to, because you can only go there a few times, right? You want to make sure that when you do develop this network, this great network, is that, don't wait too long. But like, if you're trying to sell your network every single time on something that's $14.95, like you might have used it up for the wrong reasons, right? What about like any mentors or books or anything that you really have impacted you?
I'll add on to that networking piece a little bit.
Go ahead.
I've been hosting poker nights. I'm not a member of a golf course yet, but like invited people to golf. It takes too long. I only do 9 holes. Like,
That's what me too.
18. I'm like, I just can't do it.
3.5, 4 hours on a weekday. I'm like, nah, let's get in and out.
And I love to shoot guns, real into guns. So I'm like always inviting people to the gun range, because the thing is that like people love to shoot like they're really nice, high quality guns, and it's in a controlled environment. I know what I'm doing.
We have a really fun one up north here in Austin that it's for shooting clays, but it has like 14 holes, 20 different holes, and then they, you hit. They'll have like a rabbit on the ground as well as and you can have it go at the same time. And then you kind of keep score.
And what that does is like I'll just invite random people that I've met with no intention. I have no idea who they know, if they have anything I could ever sell them. What I'm not. It's like the never intention is to sell somebody. It's just like to get to know cool people, and like you go do, and like the walls come down when you're shooting guns with somebody. Like they're like there's just a different like, all right, this guy's real. It's like I respect them for who they are. They respect me for who I am. And so like throwing events and stuff like here's what doesn't work. Is it's whatever you feel like, what every multi-level marketing person does, which is like, hey Karen, I noticed that you're into this, random DM message, it's copy and paste, or LinkedIn automated messages, or like just find, like make a list of like who are the coolest people in the city. Cool. I'm going to go invite them to do something that they would worth giving them an hour of their time, like shooting guns or playing golf, or like something they would actually want to do. And then from there, like, maybe we'll become friends or, whatever. And like sometimes you meet people and you just don't connect.
Right.
I remember like I had this awesome CEO on the podcast. We agree to have lunch. We go to lunch and I am struggling to find like every one word response to everything I say. And I'm like, I don't know if he just doesn't like me. I don't know if he doesn't care. I don't know if he thinks this is just like he's secret. Like, what is he trying to sell? Like, I don't know what it is, but just the vibe was wrong.
It could be tough on the other side on this chair, right? Because, you interact with a lot of different people, and some people have different energy levels, and that could be hard because you try to mimic it, but it could be tough. And I also want to say about the the people direct messaging and kind of basically spamming is you never try to close on the first date, right? Like get to know each other. Like you're not good. Like I get 20 messages a day on LinkedIn. People, oh, I'm a programmer, blah blah blah. I'm like, okay, but you could have sent me a message first. I run a podcast and have all my stuff's very public. Like, talk to me about something first, and then maybe actually it would happen. But I think people don't want to spend the time.
I'll give you an example. There's a really cool company out of Mexico City, and I love Mexico City, that I'm hopefully about to sign. I'll find out next week. And they were mentioned in Business Insider, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. Their website doesn't load. Find them on Instagram, send a DM, like, hey, I noticed your website doesn't load. I could totally get this fixed up for you. I didn't mention price or anything. Like, I would do it for free. Just like, hey, first, let's fix the problem. Then we can talk about what this would cost and everything else. And hey, get out of my back. Hey, I think it's working now. I was like, well, if you're interested, I saw a lot of things that could be implemented and improved. Like the translation things aren't working right, and the configurator is not working right, all that stuff. And like, yeah, we love that. And so it's like that natural thing of like, okay, I found a problem and I offer to solve it. Or if it's just a cold DM, it's like, if like I'll find somebody that looks cool. Like, I don't have like a race car anymore, but I will hopefully again soon. And so like if I had somebody who's really into cars, who's also an entrepreneur, I'm like, hey, I'm going to drive down the trace, or like, hey, I'm meeting up with these Porsche owners or whatever. I've never owned a Porsche, but I'm just giving an example. I'm meeting up with these Mercedes owners and we're going to do this drive. Would you like to come? Always invite, hey, I have a poker night. Would you like to come? You seem kind of like the people I have in it. It's like, that's how you do it. You don't do it as this DM and then hop on a Zoom call. Like like you just take your time.
Yeah, I think patience is powerful. Also on that, you're helping to fix, and I think there's two things there because I have very similar stories. One would be, you know, look, you were actually wanting to help them and you just fix it, and you would have been gladly to do it for free.
Yeah.
Because it was on your terms though too. Because doing stuff for free, you got to make sure that that's kind of on your own terms, because then you won't just get used and abused. But I'm a big fan of that, and I've done this. And then don't chase the small money, because you could have said, oh, okay, yeah, well, you know, it took an hour and a half, you know, give me $200, whatever. And then you'd only had $200. Like I've had some similar opportunities where, you know, a friend or somebody posts, hey, got a website problem on Facebook or whatever. I'm like, hey, you know, send me some credentials. I'll take a look and I'll fix it. And then they'll offer to pay. I'm like, no. And then guess what? When they need a bigger project, I'm the first people that call. And I had a rather recent instance of that, and it was a $10,000 website.
Yeah.
You know, so should I charge that $200 or wait for the 10,000? Now that 200 might not ever come, right? Which is totally okay, because I did that because I did want to help. And I've had websites go down, you know, especially when I used to work for a company when, you know, a long time ago, where like websites actually went down. Nowadays, it doesn't very often, thankfully, but like that's terrible. Like, especially if you're like the mid-level manager, like where you're having your CEO yell at you, you know, like you want that fixed in 2 seconds. So to me, I wanted to help. Like I know that feeling, and like it took me like 45 minutes, but you know, 6 weeks later, they're signing on for a $10,000 website.
Yeah.
And that's not always going to happen, but I think a lot of people.
This will happen every time, guys. Fits things for free. They'll write you $10,000 checks. You heard it here first.
That's right. But I think it's, you know, I think being genuine and stop spamming. That is definitely some key advice.
But to answer your question about books and mentors and stuff, like I love hearing people's stories. And those often don't help me out with ideas, but you have to look at it like you just need one idea to make 10 grand. Like if whatever your let's say I'm selling website management, it's $250 a month. Like I just need one thing that helps me lead to a website management client. Like just one little, like as much as like I don't really like Grant Cardone a lot. He's a little salesy to me, a little over the top for me.
But I like it because I don't listen to many people like him, so sometimes I need it. Like, sell me a little bit.
But I've heard him say something. I'm like, oh, that was really good advice.
Yeah.
You know, and I've also heard him say, look, I cold called my wife for 13 months before she would go on a date with me, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know if that's good advice. That kind of, you know, but it's like, so it's just like looking for that gold nugget. And so you hear all the books people tell you to read, like Think and Grow Rich, and like all these things. Like they tell you to read them for a reason. And also people don't read a lot. And so typically they're only reading like a few books a year, depending on who. And so they want you to know like, oh, here's one book I read. I'm often, as much as I've read every business book, I'm often focused in psychology and people. So Malcolm Gladwell and just like learning about the heart and learning about like the mind and learning how we process things, much more than like the 10X rule. Like 10X rule is great. And like, you know, but it's like, there's just the ends, like just understanding people better.
And I think that's one thing that's great with this, you know, the podcast format that is getting so popular is you get to go knee deep in some of these people's stories. You know, they're entertaining. Some of them, some are just knowledge based, and you can kind of float around. And I'm really happy that this kind of has, you know, and COVID's just making everything explode, right? But the long format storytelling in without the rules of a book, because sometimes books, I mean, I know a guy who used to own a publishing company, and he straight up said, like, we made them thick on purpose. They sold better, right? So sometimes a book could be, you know, could really be a blog post or a 1 hour episode, right?
And I see that with Acquired. Have you ever listened to that podcast?
No, I haven't. I'll have to check it out.
Sorry to pitch other podcasts.
No, I love it. No, go ahead.
They follow companies that have either IPO'd or been acquired, and they do deep dives and everything. And that's where I'm always finding little nuggets of good things. But yeah, I mean, that's how I'm always looking at just like, how do people approach? Like, I'm just like, it's just like an audiobook is so easy just to throw on, like just to always be okay with feeding your mind and seeing how people like, I read a lot of the old, like, so whether it's the founder of Hilton Hotel, Conrad Hilton, which, you know, he's older by the name Conrad, like that book, and Henry Ford's book is really interesting because like Henry Ford is like somebody who's like partly a terrible human. And like, that's not really known in history all that much, but it's like, but he also did this. Like he also built this and he did a lot of amazing things, and like, so I think often what we like to do, especially in today's world, is like if somebody has one thing bad, we just throw out everything about them. And it's like, look, like sometimes our biggest strength is our biggest downfall. And so I can understand that about people of like, okay, like MLK Jr., it's like it's pretty known that he like cheated on his wife. And it's like, that's not a good thing. I don't want that, part of it, but that's part of his story. It doesn't mean I'm judging, it's just like, it's just part of his story. And it doesn't mean I wouldn't read any of his stuff or agree with his principles or other thing in the same way. So when you look at like, I'm just always just reading, even controversial things. Cause like, I just want to have conversations and hear people's ideas and just grow my mind and my thoughts.
And I think you mentioned kind of, basically it sounds like you kind of have somewhat a ritual of how you do this stuff. Like so we all have rituals, right? If you cook dinner and you watch TV afterwards, that's a ritual, whether you know it or not. Any kind of, but I don't know, maybe what's a normal day in the life, right? any rituals that stick out that kind of help improve either you as a person or the company or whatever, however you want to take it.
So I used to be the guy that followed everything you're supposed to do. Get up at 4:30, run 3 miles, take a cold shower. I mean, just everything that's good that you're supposed to do, I did it. And I woke up one day and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And like, I was like, I did it for a while. Like, I mean, this is not like a 6 month, this was like a couple year thing. And I was the guy and I felt cocky and confident. Like, look, I do everything right. I take the cold showers. I like, and there are a lot of great benefits to all those things. But I just woke up one day and I was like, you know what? Like, I just want to put together my to-do list and knock it out. And so I would say the biggest thing that I do is that some people walk around with a notebook all the time. I use an app called Letterspace, which is like a simple notebook app. And so any thought or idea or anything that comes to mind, I write it down. And so I write down probably, 20 to like 10 to 50 notes a day. And then like once every couple of months, just go back and look at all these notes. I'm just always thinking like, I've decided just to live more freely. So I have my calendar and my schedule of things I have to do. And then I just kind of reference my book of like, oh, I forgot to do this, or I need to send this proposal out, or I should reach out to this person, or I need to check on with this. So what I did was I just flipped it. I was do everything by the book like that. And I just realized that like, as long as my brain is fully focused on one thing, which is like making something successful, then I'll just find my way there. And it does feel cool to be the dude that gets up at 4:30 and takes cold showers. And I ran a marathon with no training. I never like, like does extreme things like, but it's like, then it's like, it also is fine to like sleep until 9. I'm not really able to do that. I mean, I still get up actually pretty early, but, like it, to me, it's just like about just accomplishing what you need to accomplish. So like my ritual is just like, I just try to do the things I say I'm going to do.
And that task list, is that something like a 1 to 2 things, 10 things? Like, do you limit the task list for that day?
Yeah. No. So I've just removed structure. And the big thing I'm never going to, like, I'm always going to do what I say I'm going to do. So when I say I'm going to be here, like, there are 14 hours to be here. And I like stopped to see like different clients on the way and it was awesome. But like I said, I was going to be here. And so like doing what you say you're going to do. And so if I'm on the phone with somebody and I'm like, hey, I'll have you this by this time, I just make sure that becomes the number one priority. Or I should have never said that time. Right. And so I like to, people are like, oh, limit, like, look, I just write everything down and like, hopefully I get to it. And like, typically at midnight or 4 a.m, like one of the crazy times, I'll just feel this urge of motivation and I'll take 50 tasks and I'll outsource them to everybody. I mean, I do have a good sized staff of the other team. Just everybody, you do this, you do this, you do this. And I'm like, you know what? There was those 10 emails I didn't reply to. Knock all those out. And then I'll set up my follow-ups to go out just in case they don't respond. And this is this. And so it's like, I'm okay with my inconsistency. And used to, I would hate that. I just want to be, I reply to every email, like I'm such a bad business entrepreneur, badass that drives a Lambo, like everyone wants to be the guy. It's like, I just want to like serve people well and do a good job. And it's like, I don't need to take things this seriously. It doesn't mean that I don't take my work seriously, everything else, but like, as long as like I show up to meetings on time, but like, becoming less rigid about stuff and being okay with like, okay, I'm going to leave my office middle of the day. I'm going to walk down the street. I'm going to grab ice cream. It's unhealthy, full of sugar. Sugar is biggest link to cancer. I mean, period. Like sugar, like cancer feeds off of sugar. We all know this. and like all these things. And I'm gonna enjoy that ice cream. And you know what? I might take a nap after, and then get back to my laptop. And I probably missed one thing, and they'll be fine. And I'll just go back to this thing because as an entrepreneur, your job should be like, who is doing everything. So part of that is just me being a bad entrepreneur. I have a bunch to do. It's just me being a bad entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's always been kind of a CEO of a company. One question I had while I was giving a talk was, what do you recommend? What's something that you wish you would do better as a CEO? I said to be a CEO, meaning quit taking on tasks and make sure that you empower other people underneath you to be able to do something that follow you. And that could always be tough because you want to get knee deep and everything. And also another piece with the, go walk at 2:00. I think we all have this, not all of us, but a lot of us have this, 8 to 5 mentality and need to be in front of the computer 8 to 5. Oh no, if I'm away from the computer, but a lot of us aren't really that good at 3 p.m., right? And maybe should replace that with a 7 p.m. Not all of us can do it because of obligations outside of work. But, I've learned that, sometimes my best times are 7 p.m. to midnight, right? Yeah. So I have taken off and maybe go play beach volleyball or something in the middle of the day, which for a while was like, you're doing something wrong. You're doing something wrong. But actually, like if you look at the work and all that really matters is what productivity the company had. That's really all that mattered, right? A few final questions. So, you look at your 12-year-old self, all that, and I kind of go back to that a lot because it is very interesting that you started that. Since then, or any time, I suppose, is what are you proudest of what you've been doing?
What am I proudest of?
Yeah,
it's interesting. I would say building. Like it's cool to see people have terrible branding or logo or whatever, and then give them something that's great. Like that's fulfilling. It's awesome to know that people send rabbit messages that be like, hey, like this saved me. Like my phone was about to die. I wasn't feeling good. And like we just hear all these stories about like, hey, I rented this, and so therefore my phone wasn't gonna die. And like that was like like girls like talking about like uh her phone dying on a date, and she like sent this message, and she like was really creeped out with the guy. Like he wasn't, it was like kind of like a catfish scenario. And so like the bartender like gave her a carrot, like she charged it. She's like, oh, my phone's dying, and she's like looking at it, and the bartender's like, oh, and like goes and rents one for her, and so like I like that we're building things that provide value. Like I think that's what I'm most proud of. I don't think I'm anything special. I think I'm a broken man in need of a savior. Like I think like, at the end of the day, like I'm just so honored to work with such highly capable people, such talented people, and then I'm somehow am the guy who founded it. Like the dude that made a 15 on his ACT and had never read a book before, like somehow got this great company. And so I just feel so fortunate that God, or whatever you believe, like led me here. And so, I mean, I'm just most proud that I've just had great people in my life, and I like, though I didn't grow up rich, like I grew up with two parents that have been married for 35 years. And like, I just saw things that like, if you look at stats, like set you up better for success. And so I use that as like, that's my responsibility for the people that don't have that to see how I can help there. So helping out with, inner city things and stuff like that. So, I just feel like so proud of just like how fortunate I've been to live in America. I was born in North Korea. What am I going what am I gonna do all day? Right. Like, so I just like, I'm so grateful for life. And so like, I guess I'm proud of some of the things I built, but more than anything, I'm just overwhelmingly grateful, kind of where I sit.
And you could definitely tell that you guys are like, have a design aspect when you look at the device. If you're listening to this on audio, the device it's a very, really pretty, but it says hello, beautiful on the, right on the top. And then my last question, I ask this question to everyone. This is always how I end the podcast is, how would you like to be remembered?
The guy that ensured everyone in the world had access to fresh water. I mean, like ultimately, like I'm nothing special. I'm just somebody who's like probably not too smart, so I work harder than I should, and that's led me places. But ultimately, I wake up and I tell myself, like, man, like 25,000 people die today because I didn't solve that problem. And there's Scott Harrison, and there's people that are grinding at solving that. And they're doing amazing jobs. And you have people that are donating that, from Elon Musk to Gary Vaynerchuk, that are involved in that. But I hope I'm remembered as somebody who was a loving husband, a loving father, and uh, did what was right, and like all the things, but more than anything, like had a mission and accomplished it.
Well, Nathan, it was such a pleasure to have you on the Establishing Your Empire podcast. I appreciate you coming all the way from Nashville to do this. Hopefully it wasn't just for me, but I like to think it was. So I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right, cheers.